We return to some more EToH content, as we should be. Welcome back. We're going to be going over the worst to best towers in Forgotten Ridge. I hope you will enjoy this. This is a very special video of mine, because it just is. I don't know why. I feel like throwing a special video today. So, yeah. Like and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. Enjoy, and yeah. Also like the video. That'd be lovely. Thank you. See ya. Enjoy. I don't think I'm alone when I say that Tower of Jolly Good Fun is one of the most boring and monotonous towers in the game. The colour scheme is questionable, each jump feels insanely slow paced, and the entire thing is one massive walking simulator. None of the gameplay here tries anything new or creative, and everything just feels spammed, soulless and uninspired. I don't think I genuinely have anything else to say about this tower besides the fact that it's bland, uninteresting and insanely forgettable. An easy tower which has not been designed for enjoyability whatsoever. Also, the thanks for playing sign at the end is a really unnecessary difficulty spike, considering practically the entire thing beforehand was effortless difficulty. There's so much wrong with this tower, and I really hope that they were being sarcastic with the name. Steeple of Climbing is just kinda there, I guess. It's literally the single most forgettable Forgotten Ridge tower, and there really isn't much interesting that goes on here. There are a couple of jumps that just feel a bit questionable to me, and also some that are kinda clunky to manoeuvre around. I wouldn't say the steeple is bad per se, it's just far from good. A lot of times in this steeple I feel like there's a lack of direction in terms of ideas for it, and that there are a lot of parts that just seem to be kinda off. Not to mention some ridiculously finicky wraparounds and jumps that don't feel right for a steeple like this. I don't really know what else to say here. The steeple's really mid and it seems like it's only there as filler, which is honestly most of Forgotten Ridge, but the rest of the towers are actually well crafted in a way. This just seems to exist and nothing more. Citadel of Weird Nostalgia is definitely a bit overhated, but it is far from good, I will admit. The whole idea and gimmick is cool, including floors from various towers in the first 3 rings in one huge citadel. This seems like a good idea in question until you realise how difficult it is to actually make the gameplay flow and work between them, and the transitions between the floors are awful at times. Not to mention the numerous soft locks around the citadel that can make grinding it a pain. Also, many of the towers referenced in the citadel have been revamped, so they're not even relevant to the game anymore. The Citadel also makes a few random edits to a lot of the floors which feel kind of unnecessary and pointless, and they just add to the issues that some of the gameplay has throughout the whole experience. It can be fun to recognise and play through a bunch of the old towers, but I think this was just a little bit poorly executed in my opinion. This steeple is a ridiculously short one, yet it probably won't end up being short because of how obnoxious the traps are. Seriously, the traps are few and far between, but when they appear, they are some of the most aggravating experiences to occur to all of mankind. Even once you take out the traps from this steeple, you find that it isn't really all that special anyway. A lot of the gameplay is really bland and there's nothing notable that really stood out to me in this steeple. It's just a steeple that's kind of just designed to make you rage and that's about it. It's not horrible, it's just really forgettable and terribly painful to go in blind. Although I like the balls you can push around on the floor at the bottom, that's a neat little callback to some of the game's very early towers, and it gives the steeple a sense of life to it, I suppose. Tower of Versatility is one that I have very mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I feel like it's quite boring and slow paced, meaning that it feels like it takes ages to beat. The gameplay itself isn't really engaging enough to keep me entertained throughout the tower, so it kinda just feels like a snooze fest at times. However, on the other hand, the tower does manage to get quite creative at times, such as the network of tubes traversing through floor 4, and the overall progression of this tower being wacky and unpredictable. There's a lot of concepts this tower plays around with, but just not enough to maintain any enjoyability, leading to a lot of sections being slow paced and kind of boring at times. Steeple of Lowo is just alright. There's not really anything too noteworthy about it, it's just a nice friendly beginner steeple with some basic classic jumps designed to ease the player into some harder gameplay. I do wish they kept this steeple at its original difficulty though, as it used to be such a great choice for a first hard back in the day, but oh well. To be honest, it's a pretty forgettable steeple, but there's nothing in it likely to piss anyone off, so there's a plus for that. The soundtrack for this steeple is very decent, even if the entire thing is only like 3 minutes long, not even taking into account the speedrunners. Seriously, this is one of, if not the shortest thing in all of EToH. It doesn't really do much to stand out, it's a really basic steeple, only really designed for the 3 points to be honest. I suppose it's somewhat good for beginners though, and at the end of the day, it's a really short and simple classic tower. I don't really know why Tower of Mindbreaking was added into the game, but I suppose it's okay to have around. The tower itself isn't really anything that interesting, it's mostly just a culmination of more complex tower mechanics that are classic obviously, because it has to be classic. This tower has its creative moments, but also has its downsides. It can feel a bit clunky at times, but also be genuinely cool to see how they implement some of these elements of gameplay into the tower. It's slightly forgettable in my opinion, but of course this is subjective, and I can admire the ideas the tower has and the approach it takes to classic gameplay. I do just think a little more could be done here to make it fit in with the overall solid harder towers in Forgotten Ridge. An alright tower, nothing amazing, nothing terrible, a pretty average experience all round. Every time I play this steeple, I always wonder if anyone's actually deleted Roblox because of this. As for the steeple itself, it's pretty basic, yet again, and just like Steeple of Lowo, incredibly short. However, this one does get a little creative with its usage of different kinds of X pushers and the ice section on the final floor. There's actually some effort to focus on the gameplay in the steeple, which I like. It's not just a free spam of parts like some other classic towers are. It actually takes itself seriously, which I can respect. All in all, it's your basic classic tower experience, and there's not much more to say about it. If there's any tower that perhaps perfectly replicated the old feel, it would probably be this one. It's an okay steeple, that's all I can really say. This steeple is kind of like, oh yeah, that one random steeple with rising lava. Seriously, I don't know why this was made, but I guess it was a cool idea. This is a really good introduction to things occurring under pressure and having limited time to do things. While it has been nerfed and the lava doesn't really have the same threat that it did before, it's still genuinely stressful at times, and the health management aspect of this steeple can actually at occasions be fairly enjoyable. One problem I have with it is that it's kinda learny for a classic tower. Some of the gameplay can be kinda bland, but with this having the theme that it does, it's honestly hard to blame them for this. It's meant to be a short and classic lava sprint obby, because having the gameplay being too complex would take away the tension of it. The button hunt at the end is simple, yet it's a nice challenge, and overall the tower feels and plays quite well. I do like how they implement all sorts of things, like obviously what I just said, you know, the button hunt at the end, but also this steeple is a very simple and basic easy experience with nothing else really to make note of. Its gameplay isn't really anything special, but for an easy this isn't exactly abnormal. And the jumps in the tower are often incredibly basic, though they do clearly have more effort put into them than say for example Tower of Funny Thoughts. I also really like the fact you're given an optional challenge at the end of the steeple which contains harder gameplay. It's nothing too groundbreaking, but it's nice to have that kind of path for the more skilled players to remain entertained. It's a chill and easy experience with most boxes ticked all around for good gameplay. Tower of Immense Ire is a tower that I find oddly enjoyable. It uses classic gameplay quite well and makes it feel like a fun experience whilst maintaining simplicity. There's a lot of mechanics in this tower that I think were done really well, such as the outside section, the X-Pusher gameplay, and even the finale. The gameplay is really enjoyable, and although the tower is quite short, it is quite fun to go through and they don't go into unnecessary effort trying to make it go on for as long as possible. The gameplay is paced very well and manages to flow decently well too. I also like the floor colours of this tower. They go in like 2 shades of green, purple, blue, cyan and pink, and for some reason that actually looks pretty appealing. I think this tower uses classic and simple mechanics really well, and ends up being an entertaining experience for people of all skill. I like Tower of Triangular Covering. It's a goofy concept, but it actually makes the gameplay quite interesting and fun at times. The gameplay in this tower is solid. There aren't any annoying loop faily jumps or weird janky elements to it. It's just a pure basic experience. The floor 10 outside is very good for newer players, as it introduces them to the high pressure and stakes of outside final stretches. And there isn't also anything too sketchy that requires too much thought. There's also some parts where the gameplay can be quite innovative, and it plays around with the elements such as speed altering and time sections. It's a solid experience and a great first challenging which is crafted really well. Steeple of Huge Pain is another forgettable tower in Forgotten Ridge, but this one's mostly an underrated gem. This steeple is so satisfying to beat and rebeat. The jumps are well made and actually enjoyably pleasing to do and get consistent at. The steeple is kind of harder than it's supposed to be, but I think that's due to how short it is. This steeple always surprised me because it was made by the same creator of Steeple of Climbing. I like how the last two floors still maintain the high intensity of the difficulty, and if you're not careful, you're going to drain a lot of health on them, and you have to be mindful of the fact that it isn't just a walk in the park, even after you've entered the safety nets. There's a certain charm to this steeple, with its impressive handling of classic gameplay and enjoyability factor that you can't deny. It's a really good skill booster as well if you happen to beat it. Overall, a very fun steeple which I love to come back and rebeat from time to time. I don't know why, but it seems like they were trying to make every tower in Forgotten Ridge as short as possible. This tower does make it work, however. The colours used in it make it feel ominous, and as you ascend, you definitely feel that tension rise, which is very effective for creating a stressful atmosphere that can alarm the player. The gameplay here is actually pretty creative too. They do a lot with the jumps that take things beyond the basics of classic gameplay, while also keeping things simple. The final floor of this tower does a great job at being genuinely tense and feeling like a worthy final stretch, without just using an outside section all the time. My only nitpick with this tower is that some of the gameplay can be kind of finicky and cagey at times, but that's partly just a factor of the difficulty. I think this steeple is very solid, and works well to create the tense environment of a Remorse steeple. A lot of jumps are very fun to practice and play through, and the steeple itself is very rewarding to beat. It does a lot to not just be a short slot fill, which a lot of Forgotten Ridge towers can feel like, and actually puts in the effort to be a fully fledged experience at some points. I like how the steeple can go from 0 to 100 a lot of the time, where you could be casually playing and the next minute you're sprinting under a small timer, or desperately trying to keep up with moving platforms. There's a sense of actual thought and effort that goes into this steeple, and the gameplay and enjoyability reflects it. Despite being a classic steeple, there are genuinely times where I thought it was quite impressive with the attention to detail and the mechanics they utilised. Only downside would be that it can have difficulty spikes, but these are rare and they aren't severe. I don't know what it is about Tower of Increasing Stress, but there's an element of enjoyability about it that I just love. It's a short and sweet tower which contains some tricky yet learnable jumps, and although it does take some time to master, it feels very rewarding to do in the end. There's a lot done in this short tower with mechanics that make it feel lively and well made. I like the floor 9 outside section. I had many a fail on it, but it's a great balance of decent intense gameplay with the stress of the outside section. There's also a sense of less is more with this tower that makes its design feel natural and necessary. It's a charming classic tower that does a lot to keep the player engaged, and also serve as a short but fun challenge for the more skilled. An amazing tower with classic gameplay done right. It's the best in Forgotten Ridge. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you watching the video. Please comment what you think about the towers, whichever one you think is the best one. Also, please like and subscribe. It really helps me. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch the video.